Good morning. I'm Carlton Sharp, pastor of Faith Christian Center Church, right here in Beaumont, Texas, and we're here on what's happening in our neighborhood. And today my guest is Mr. Chris Boone. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Pastor.
Hey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I'm originally from Mobile, Alabama. My wife and kids and I moved here. We moved here about 15 years ago, so we've been in Beaumont ever since.
Oh,
so.
You know, Chris, whenever I'm interviewing somebody, I say they come in, but they don't leave out.
That's right. That's right. We've raised our family here. We had two daughters. They went to Odom Academy, and now one's in high school and one's off at college. And we love living here. So.
Wow. Now, Chris, you work with the Code Enforcement Department. You know, that long name department. So tell us.
Yeah. So the name changes from time to time, but the title currently is Planning and Community Development Department. And our department is responsible for code enforcement, but also we have a division responsible for building codes, planning and zoning. We manage the company that manages the bus system. We do a little bit of economic development, a little bit of downtown redevelopment work, and then also we do housing and CDBG, so federal dollars that flow through the city for those kinds of programs. We handle those as well.
Okay, so let's talk about this building permit system because many people who may be watching maybe think that I can just go build anything at any time, you know, without any inspections or anything like that. So tell us a little bit about that process.
Right, that's right. And sometimes it becomes a problem because of a safety issue or complaints or whatever. So most things require a permit. Now, if you want to paint your house, minor maintenance, that's okay, except the historic district. In the historic district, there's a little bit extra review for paint color, things like that. But citywide, you know, just about everything except maybe painting and minor maintenance requires a permit. But in terms of what's required for a permit, you know, we always do, or if you're not sure, we always encourage folks to call us, 880-3100, and just ask.
Yeah.
You know, does this require a permit? Do I have to have a contractor, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, and that's very important because, I mean, work can be stopped. I mean, if they're in violation of the permit, you know.
Yeah, and that's you know, a lot of the issues we run into is, you know, maybe somebody wants to add an addition to a house or maybe even add a garage, and a lot, you know, most of the time it's fine, but it does require a permit, and we do have to check things like setbacks to make sure it's, you know, far enough from the property line, things like that, and it's built right.
So now you say your department covers the permit department, the bus services.
We manage the company that manages the bus system. Yes, sir.
All right. And what was that third?
Planning and zoning, and then CDBG and home.
Okay.
So the federal dollars that flow like from HUD for housing and community development flow through our office.
Okay, so the planning and zoning, so let's just say somebody had some property and it was zoned for business or residential. How does a person go about getting that changed so that they could utilize their property?
Right. So again, call us anytime you're not sure if something is allowed or not allowed, because sometimes the zone might allow both. And if you're interested in, say, changing it, again, call our office, 880-3100, and we can look at, there's a plan we have to look at. So long range, what does the community want to become? And then the zoning itself. So sometimes it may make sense to change the zoning, and sometimes it may not. Regardless, there's an application process. It goes to the Planning Commission. They meet once a month, and then the City Council makes the final decision about a week or two after that.
Okay. So what are some of the violations that your department looks at within the city?
Right. So, of course, zoning and building codes is something we have to look to, but then the Code Enforcement Division, we are looking at issues about high grass. That's a very common issue in our city. We look at litter. Accumulation of water, things like that, nuisance, junk motor vehicles, those could be an issue. So, and we deal with thousands of those issues every year. I think I looked the last year we sent out 3,800 notices for high weeds. And those are just notices. So.
Now, what do you consider high weeds?
Right. So what the code says is that on average across a lawn, the grass or weeds has to be 12 inches or higher.
Okay.
So if you got one little patch over here that's high, that's not necessarily a violation.
But if
you look at a lot, and you kind of like you know it when you see it. When you look at a lot and it's 12 inches or higher, then it's time. You're going to get a notice from us giving you the opportunity to cut it. And once it's cut, that's fine. It's abated, no problem. A lot of the lots we have are vacant. Sometimes there's back taxes owed, or the family member, we can't find anyone to ask them to cut it. And in those cases, if there is someone and they just don't want to mow it, then there can be charges filed against that person. There's a municipal court process, so they'll have their day in court if they want it. If they want to argue about, I think it was 10 inches, not 12. We're happy to discuss that. But then a lot of properties, there is no one. There's no heirs that we can find. And again, there may be back taxes owed. So a lot of those we end up mowing ourselves.
Okay. Now, if the city mows that property and there is an owner that can be found, do you pass that cost on to the owner?
Yes. If we can find the owner, that cost is going to be passed on to them, and they'll need to pay that back to us. And like I said, there can be a fine. If there's not an owner, we will again mow it, and at some point, usually about $500, we'll attach a lien to that property.
Okay.
Okay. And so that if and when it sells in the future, we'll get that funding back, hopefully.
Now, is there a point where you will repossess the property?
We don't. Generally, we don't want to take the property because we don't want to mow it, and generally we don't. A lot of people have that misconception, like when we tear down a house or when we mow the lawn, we take it. We don't take it. We don't want it. Now, sometimes, as I mentioned, there are back taxes, and that goes to a situation where the county and the city become the owner just because there's taxes owed to us. Again, we don't want to hold property we don't need for a public purpose, so we're always working with the tax assessor to try and get those sold on tax sales.
Right.
Again, because our ultimate goal is to get them back on the tax roll and get them mowed because we've got enough to mow.
So now, is your department also responsible for red tagging dilapidated homes that are in disrepair?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So if a home is open and accessible, if it's structurally dangerous, what we're really looking at is it dangerous to the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So fire, termites, you could have people living in there.
Right.
It could be near a school, and it's just a bad situation. So we are responsible for inspecting those. We red tag them. Again, there's always an opportunity for the owner, if there is one, we can find one, to repair it. And sometimes that happens. Most cases it doesn't. But if it's not repaired, again, it goes to the city council. So everyone has their kind of day in court.
Okay.
And they can request it at additional time, and generally the council will give that. But at a certain point, if repairs are not done, and it's still an issue of safety, then we're going to take it down. And we take down probably 100 to 200 a year.
Wow.
So a lot.
Okay, so red tag doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be torn down right away. The owner has an opportunity to repair the property.
We do have, if it's a fire, or if it is, storm damage, or sometimes it's just bad enough where it is an immediate threat, we do have the power to say, look, this is unrepairable. But in, I would say, 95% of the cases, it's a situation where the owner has the opportunity to repair it.
Okay. Now, another thing I want to ask you about is, let's just say that you're driving through, one of your inspectors are driving through the neighborhood and they see a car being repaired in the driveway. What does the city have to say about that?
Right. So you can repair a car. You've got 30 days to repair a car at your house. But most of the times what we call JMVs, or junk motor vehicles, they're not actively being repaired. And so we do tag those. And again, it goes through the court process. So somebody, they have their day in court if they want to argue about the status. But it's got to be an operable motor vehicle that's not, actively just basically falling apart. And then there's some exceptions, like antique vehicles. If they're screened, You can repair. You can repair. I'll add to that. You can repair a vehicle if it's enclosed, like in your garage, or totally screened where you can't see it. But what we're looking for is basically cars that are just laid up and
Yeah.
and
So the key word is operable. I mean, they just can't sit out in the driveway or on the curb and just be an eyesore to the community.
Right. So on public property, like on the street, 72 hours. It's got
Wow.
to come off. On private property, let's say it's in your driveway, you got 30 days to basically fix it. But beyond that, if it's not operable, after that, then again, it's kind of like a red tag situation.
Okay.
And eventually it goes to the court, and a judge has to say, yes, this is a junk motor vehicle. And then we work with towing companies to pick
Okay,
them up.
so you will issue basically a citation, and the towing company will, especially those that are on the street, for 3 days, 72 hours.
Those are much quicker, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So we will get them off.
Okay, let's just say that I'm living next to a vacant lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I mean, it's just an eyesore.
Right.
What can I do? Can I buy that lot?
Well, it depends. I mean, first of all, if you're living next to a vacant lot and it's high grass, tires, junk litter, any of the above, junk motor vehicle, call us. 311 is a quick way to do it.
Oh.
You can get an app on your smartphone. You can do it on the internet, but the quickest way is just call 311 and just say, look, I'm at this address. Can y'all check out next door? And we'll send somebody out and take a look at it. And again, we go through that process to abate it. Of course, if the owner can be found, that's going to be an opportunity for them to abate it. And again, if we can't find anybody, then we'll work to abate it. The ownership, again, we don't take ownership. If there is an owner, you can certainly approach them on a private basis. If you're interested in the property and you think there's back taxes, you can contact the tax assessor's office.
Okay.
And I think they have a new program where if they know someone's interested in the property, they will put it on a list. And so I think they may inform you, or at least they put you on a list so that you'll know when the next tax sale is.
Gotcha.
And then you can go to the tax sale and then, again, bid on the property and try and acquire it.
Now you just mentioned the 311 system.
Yes.
Explain the 311 system, because many might not know exactly what it is.
Right. So it's a really good tool or resource, and it's a variety. It's basically a call center. So you know about 911 center for emergency
Right.
purposes. This is a non-emergency city service call center. And so you can call 311 and you can say there's a pothole in front of my street, there's an animal carcass on the corner, there's high grass next to me, there's a junk motor vehicle, this house burned the other day and fire department's gone, but what's going to happen to it? There's an unsafe structure that the door's wide open and you're 2 blocks from the school. So just about any kind of city service, water leak, what's going on. You can also ask questions. When's the next jazz at the lake, and they'll tell you.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a great service. The mayor initiated that probably 5 or 6 years ago. I think they rolled it out to 24 hours. So they take calls all the time, and again, it gets routed directly. So if you get a high weed call, our inspectors have terminals in their cars. And so just like PD, so it gets routed to them, and so they do it that day or the next.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I want to thank Chris for joining us today. Hey, listen, if you have a question on whether or not you need a permit to build something, just give them a call, the Code Enforcement Department. Don't make the mistake of building something and then get fined because you didn't go through the proper process in order to get the permits. Again, it's so easy. Or call 311. It's a new system that's been around for a few years now to get information about what's happening in our city. Or, like you said, if you have potholes, you have overgrown grass, you have something that the city departments can take care of, just dial 311 and inform them. I want to thank you for joining us today and on this segment of What's Happening in Our Neighborhood, and we will see you next time on our broadcast.